This is Michael Scott Hollash, and this is part 2 of the Reform Report interview with former Gambino crime family mobster Anthony Ruggiano Jr. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our PayPal and Patreon supporters, James Francis, Anthony Sparacino, Gianna Capriatto, and my longtime friend Dave. I really appreciate each and every one of you who continue to help us continue bringing content to the channel. And I also wanted to give a quick thank you to each and every one of our subscribers who continue to tune in, and to those of you who chime in with your comments and feedback. I really appreciate that. And if you know of anybody that would be interested in the content that we bring, please share our videos, our interviews, let them know what we bring here to the channel. It would be super appreciated. So here is part 2 of our interview with Anthony Ruggiano Jr.
So what happened was with my brother-in-law, so when I came home from Vermont and I went to see Tony Lee, he already had known what was going on. And then that was when the ball started rolling about, what to do with the situation. And then the ultimate outcome was, unfortunately, we murdered him.
Right. Well, and in that life, I don't know what that guy was thinking. To think that it would come out any other way and it's not even having to deal with you, but look who she's married to. Your dad was a very serious guy.
Exactly. And it's funny you said that, because when I actually went to see my father, because then what happened was I had to go visit my father to tell him what was going on and to get his permission to do what we were planning to do, because he could have put a stop to it. And when I went to see him and I told him what Frankie did, the first words out of my father's mouth was to me, "What does he think, I'm dead?" Like my father made it all about him, because people like my father had a little bit of an ego.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. It's like this guy might as well just commit suicide because he knows what's going to be coming to him.
Right. And I just think he underestimated us. I don't think he thought. I think he thought because he was married to my sister that it wouldn't happen, but unfortunately it did happen.
Well, that's that life, and John Alite really well, and John's a good, he's a friend of mine. I've interviewed him a couple times, and we talk.
Right.
And well, just to give some context for the listeners of my interviews who haven't heard my interview with John Alite, from your experience, I know he was younger than you. What was your what did you know of John Alite? Like, what kind of person on the street was he?
Actually, my brother was his Little League coach.
Right.
He was a tough kid. He was a stand-up kid. He was a tough kid. He was very loyal. He was loyal to the Gottis at the time. He was honorable. You know what I mean? And he was a tough kid. He was a good kid. He was, and people feared him. And he looked like a little, an altar boy.
Right. Yeah. Very clean cut for sure when he was young.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And I always had, I know him since he's a little kid. I know his father. I was always at the racetrack with his father. His father was a good man.
Mm-hmm.
I always, liked his father. My father always liked his father. And I always, anytime I ever did business with him, everything was always good. We were always good with each other.
Mm-hmm.
We always looked out. He always looked out for us, and we always looked out for him. If he came to us for something, it was done. And if we went to him for something, it was done.
Different people have different perspectives, but just kind of keeping up with the news cycle and the media, and I've been attacked because I've interviewed people or I'm friends with people for then none of that bothers me. I don't care. Why do you think the Gotti family is always attacking that guy? I know John points stuff out about them too, but it's almost like they try to silence him because
the truth hurts.
Right.
The truth hurts. Everything that John Alite says about them is true. John Jr. was a murdering drug dealer who the public let go 3 times. And I think it's just the truth hurts. I think he hits them in the belly, and they want to discredit him. They want the public not to know who they really are.
Right.
Who he really is. I know who he lawyer, Charlie Canisi, was an excellent lawyer.
Right,
But
yeah,
I
he
think
was
they
good.
just try to discredit. They just try to discredit Johnny Alite because they want the public to think differently of them.
As a journalist, even with John being a friend, as a journalist, I always try to be objective, and I don't try to post an opinion more than just trying to let you guys tell your story, And however, one thing that is indisputable is the fact that John Alite released John Jr.'s Queen of the Day 302 in his book. From every mob guy I've interviewed, they said, I don't care if you didn't say anything. You sitting down with an FBI agent is a death sentence. It's a death sentence.
Exactly. You went in.
Right.
You went in. Listen, from my experience with the government and the FBI, is they know everything.
Right.
When I was debriefed, and I had meetings with them, and I was debriefed, they told me stuff about me that I didn't even know, that I forgot. They know everything. So my belief is when he went in and met with them, they started hitting him with questions that he wasn't prepared to answer, and he got scared, and he ended the conversation. But he went in there to cooperate. There's no doubt about it.
And another thing, too, and not insinuating that he still is, but when somebody is still an active asset for the government, you don't know how many 302s there are because the government's going to hold those cards close to the chest,
Exactly. If they're open investigations, without a doubt. What's the point at this stage of the game? I'll speak for myself, and this pertains to Johnny Alite too. At this stage of the game, what's the point of me making up stories? And what would be the point of me telling you bullshit?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense for me to do that at this stage of the game. What's the point? I'm going to make up stories now. I'm 66 years old. I was in the street. The mob was part of my life the day I was born. I mean, why would I make stories up now?
Well, and another thing, it's, and again, I guess it goes to show what the mob is today versus what it was then, because, Junior, I'm assuming, if he's out of the mob, he's shelved. It's not like the guy could probably ever go back and be a part of the mob,
And that's an excellent point you brought up, because that's you just hit the nail right on the head, because the mob today is full of shit, because if it was really the mob like it was in my father's day,
right,
he would get killed, because nobody would be able to go on TV like that. Nobody would ever be able to write books or make movies. He would have been long gone.
When I interviewed Andrew DiDonato, in fact, when John Sr. was away, and obviously this would be during your period, I guess that went to like a 3-man panel that Nicky Carrazzo was on.
I was hanging out with Nicky at the time.
And Andrew said that Nicky came to him and said, hey, we're going to whack out Junior.
My father told Nicky on a visit. We used to go visit my father in Petersburg, Virginia, me and Nicky and Tony Lee and brother, because my father was in Petersburg, Virginia with Lenny doing a bid. And when we used to go visit him, my father used to tell Nicky in the visit, what are you waiting for to kill him and Pete and declare yourself the boss? And Nicky used to tell my father, oh my God, you never change.
Right.
He used to tell my father, yeah.
Right.
That was my father always told me, Nicky, always told Nicky to do that.
Well, and I think that it was something, pertaining, from that interview that I did, it was something that was being planned at that time, but I think Nicky ended up getting locked up,
Yeah, we got locked up. I got indicted with Nicky in Florida.
Oh, okay, so right?
That was I got indicted with Nicky in Florida in '96. I was indicted with Nicky, and I went away for that case. Got indicted with Nicky and Lenny and Ralphie and Robert Ankle and Sal Penjo. We all got arrested on the case, and then Nicky got rearrested again in Brooklyn. He had 2 cases pending at the same time. The state of the mob today, it's a different. It's not the same mob. It's not the same mob that my father grew up in the 50s and 60s,
right,
and even the 70s. Just look what happened to Joe
he knew ahead of time. He knew ahead of time what was
Of course
coming.
he knew. Of course
Right.
he knew. And,
Right.
and then at the end of the day, I knew why. Then the point I'm trying to make is that that was Junior back in the day. The same thing's going on today with all this TV stuff and everything. So that's
Right.
the difference between the mob then and the mob now. It's just a different world. I mean, these kids today, are they even criminals? I mean, I don't even know. What do they know how to do? They don't know how to write a number. They don't know everything. Bookmakers, everything's online. You don't have to know nothing. You just give somebody a website. When I came up, my father had me. I learned every facet, same as my father. Like we progressed to actually, we progressed from through the rackets to doing work to we went up the ladder.
It's just like with everything in society, criminality, it's the same thing. Everything kind of goes back to this kind of like thuggy, streety thing, and that's kind of like how you see these guys now. Just even it's even in the way they present themselves with their pants hanging down below their asses, and talking like they're from the ghetto. And
when I was a kid, I mean, when I thought that it was a good thing, when I thought like it was a really good thing, I had a great, we had a great life. We lived the real, we ate the best restaurants, we wore the nicest clothes, we didn't wait on lines.
Right.
We went into the phone book about it through the basement. I mean, it was a great life. You get caught up in all that pizzazz.
Your era was kind of like what was portrayed in Goodfellas in a way.
Exactly. Exactly. Goodfellas was probably one of the most realistic gangster movies made.
Right.
I mean, there was a couple of bullshit parts in it, but pretty much they hit the nail on the head with the lifestyle and how people lived it. Always drinking, always wives and girlfriends, and and my father did come up with all these big out of state, all these people that books are written about, and all they changed history. I mean, they made history. They changed the course of the country.
Right. Well, even with your father himself, I mean, like in one of our previous conversations, didn't you say that he was questioned as a suspect in the Frank Costello?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they took him in. They actually took him to the hallway where Frank was shot.
Wow.
They actually took him to the hallway and made him run up and down the hallway. Because someone saw a guy run out that was built like my father, and the chin was built like my father. They were stocky guys.
Right.
And my father was involved in so many hits, so many murders. He was a suspect in so many murders that when anything mob related happened back then, he would get scooped up. He would always have to go on the lam. And he always used to tell me that it was definitely not him. And because I told him, "You sure it wasn't you?" And he used to tell me if it was me, he would have been dead.
Right.
Yeah, I would have never left the hallway without shooting him again.
Yeah, because basically just a bullet grazed him, right?
He told me he would have gave him the coup de grace. That's what he told me. He would have gave him the coup de grace. He said it wasn't me.
It was.
And at the time I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. At the time.
Right.
Now today, I think differently.
And now, do you think your dad, if he was in the mafia as it is today, do you think he would still stay involved, or do you think he'd see it for how it is and just kind of like retire, just be done with it? Or do you think?
I don't think so. I think he would probably he would probably make it a little more violent than it is. I don't think he would put up with a lot of stuff that's going on out there. I think he would probably try to make it a little more like it used to be. But I don't think he would step away. It was too much who he was.
Right, that's interesting because when I asked Andrew about Nicky, and I said, "Hey, when Nicky gets back out on the street, do you think he'll just kind of walk away?" He's like, "No way, he's a gangster, man."
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no, he would have never walked away. He didn't walk away when he did 13 years. He came out and he went right back into the street, and he was already in his 70s. It's who they were. That's all they knew. That's all he knew.
Right.
He knew. That's all he knew. That's all he. He loved it. He loved being a gangster. He loved being Fat Andy.
What do you think of Gene Gotti? Do you think Gene Gotti will ever stay involved in that, or do you think he's pretty much done?
Knowing Gene, I don't think he's done. It's too much of who they are, and they're all egomaniacs. Gene, John, my father, they were egomaniacs. I don't think he's done.
Right.
like old timers think how, when I was away and 9/11 happened,
Right.
I was in school kill. I was in federal prison. I was in school kill. So I was out in the yard. I was walking around the yard, and this guy Mike, this kid from Canada, was walking in front of us, and I was walking around the yard with Kevin Kelly, one of the Westies.
Mm-hmm.
He was my cellmate. We were walking around the yard, and he turned around to me and he said, "Oh man, a plane just crashed into the World Trade Center." And I said, "Oh man, it must have been one of them tourist planes, right?" And we kept on walking. The next thing we know, another plane crashed into the tower. The next thing I know, they're on the speakers telling us that we all need to go back to our units. The yard was being closed. We all go down to the gate and we ask the CO, "What's going on?" And he goes, "Man," the one attack, 2 planes just crashed into the World Trade Center. So there was this guy, Willie, that was with me. He was a bookmaker from Jersey, and he said, "Oh my God, my son works in there," which eventually his son, unfortunately, wound up getting killed in the World Trade Center. He was in the building that day. And so we all go back to our units, and it's on TV, and the whole thing, the building smoking, and we're standing there, we're watching it on the TV, and, they're taking us out, guys from New York, to make phone calls, and then the towers fell. So the towers fell, and after a while, they started telling you about the police officers and everything, that all the first responders that were missing, that ran into the building. And I'm standing under the TV with a couple of wise guys, and they say on the TV that 250 officers are unaccounted for. Police or NYPD, 250 cops are unaccounted for. And one of them turns around to the other one and said, "More fucking cops should have ran in there." And I said, "Are you kidding me?" I used to go in them buildings with my kids. I was kind of devastated by the whole, I was upset over the whole thing. This guy, that's the mentality. They don't even give a shit. As far as he's concerned, more cops should have ran. Not saying that, they ran in there as here. Look what they did. These guys ran in a building that a plane just crashed into to save people, and you're hoping that more people went in there to die. What kind of fucking person are you? That was the beginning, for me, that was sort of the beginning of the end for me. That's when I started, my mind started, this way. I started looking at my, I did some soul searching, and I started looking at, how I was raised and how I'm living, and,
Right. So in that regard, at that point, was your father, how long was he passed away at that point? 2 years?
My father passed away in 99.
99. So at that point, your father wasn't in your life, so it gave you a kind of at that point you were standing up on your own without having your father's influence over you.
And in my heart, of hearts, I knew that if my father was alive, he would feel the same way as that guy felt, that more cops should have went in that building and died.
Yeah, it is a very interesting, twisted perspective, and for sure. A lot of people glamorize the mob. I'm intrigued by it, but more for the history of it. I surely don't glamorize it. There's a lot of journalists on YouTube that they try to talk like, the gangster lingo, and he's a rat, and that guy's a rat, and rat this, rat that. It's like, look, you jerk off, you're a journalist. What are you? You're not a gangster.
Right. Listen, Albert Anastasia was my father's idol. He was the high executioner. That was his name. That was his nickname.
Right.
And my father loved him. When he was murdered, my father was actually on the way to Manhattan to go see him. When he was murdered in the hotel, in the barber shop.
Right.
My father was actually driving to Manhattan, and it came on the radio that he was just murdered. And my father pulled over and to a payphone and called on Neil up and said, "What's going on?" And Neil said, "Don't come to the city. They just whacked Albert." Father was in the car with Tony, driving to Manhattan to meet them.
Was that an internal family deal?
Yeah, Carl Gambino. Yeah.
Okay, so he was making a power move. Gambino was.
Oh yeah, he took over the family. Yeah, my
Right.
father and them actually went on the lam, because what happened was my father's crew was Albert's main guys. They were doing all the work for Albert.
Right, so they were afraid that they were going to get taken out, clipped too.
Well, so they actually wanted to kill Carl. had an appointment to meet him in Grand Central Station. And they were going to actually kill him in Grand Central, try to kill him in Grand Central Station. My father, Neil, Frankie Martin, this guy Mike Catalano, and Neil and Carl sent some old timer from another family that was very good friends with Neil to Grand Central Station, and he told Neil that Carl wanted them all to come in. He wanted to make the peace, and they all went. And my father told me that they went to Carl's house one at a time, found his basement where he lived with his family, so they would feel safe. They went to his house where he lived with his family and his children, and they went in his basement, and one at a time, and they went down there, and he was down there, and he told them that he understands why they did what they did. They were just soldiers, and they were taking orders, and he wanted them to be in his family, and they made peace with him, and he made Neil their captain, and then eventually he made Neil his underboss.
Right. Very interesting.
Yeah, so that's all mob history. I mean, that's all serious stuff there.
I never really understood what was, if it was something that, like, all the other family bosses wanted. Obviously, I'm sure they all wanted Anastasia out of the way, too.
Yeah, the commission had it okay because
right.
they feared Albert. Albert wanted Cuba. Later on, my father explained to me what was going on. He used to abuse Carl. He didn't like Carl. So
right.
He used to abuse Carl. And
right.
he was putting up something to do with Cuba. Wanted too much of a piece of Cuba,
and see the problem with that is now you're not only stepping on the New York mob bosses, but now you're disrespecting Santo Trafficante. Right. You're disrespecting Carlos Marcello, because those guys had big pieces of Cuba too.
Exactly, and then and Carl was good friends with Vito Genovese, and that was the end of it. And they got permission, and they killed Albert. They killed him.
Right.
And Paul became the boss, and then he took them all back, and then my father, they made Neil the captain, and then eventually, ironically, they started doing the work for Carl.
Right.
They started doing work for Carl because Carl knew what they were. Carl knew they were all killers.
Right. He knew what their strengths were and used them to his advantage. And that's the thing that just goes to show you that nobody in that life is untouchable. Because I'm sure Albert Anastasia probably walked around with an air of arrogance, like who is gonna fuck with me?
Exactly. My father said he was in shock when it happened. He couldn't believe it. Yeah, Albert thought he was invincible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. My father told me when Albert used to walk in a room, people used to stand at attention.
And Albert wasn't an unassuming guy. He was a pretty gruff, tough-looking dude to begin with.
He was crazy. Listen, the bank robber, Willie, what was his name? That bank robber, that famous bank robber, that Albert killed a witness for him, and he didn't even know him. He just liked reading about him.
Was it Sutton?
Willie Sutton. Yeah.
Willie Sutton. Right.
Yeah. Albert just liked reading about him. He never met the man. And then when Willie Sutton got arrested, and there was a witness against him, Albert had them go kill the guy. The guy was fixing his car. They killed him.
Just because he liked reading about the guy.
Yeah, because he just liked what he did. He just liked him. He thought he was going to help him.
Right.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
Anyhow, so just real quick, what are you doing now? Like, what are you doing? Now that you've gotten away from that life.
I bounced around for a while. I went into the program. I was out west for a while, and then I came back. I went back to school. And I've been involved in recovery. Like I said earlier, I was in treatment in 1988. Because I had a cocaine problem, and I went in treatment, and I came out, and I've been clean 31 years now. I haven't had a drink or a drug or anything.
Damn, man, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I've been involved in the recovery process for, 31, for quite a long time. And a few people I've met along the way have worked in treatment, and a very good friend of mine called me and offered me a job in treatment, and he said the treatment center was willing to put me through school. So I moved to the state I'm living in, and I started working at the treatment center as a counselor case manager, and I went to school. I graduated to school, and now I'm working for the past 6 years. I've been working in treatment.
Wow, man, that's awesome.
I
Right.
went to treatment. I helped people recovering addicts and alcoholics,
Right.
females and males. I helped them, change their lives. And I've been working in treatment now for 6 years.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, who better to help somebody than somebody who has been down that road? I mean, that's fantastic. And then the longer you're away from something, the more foreign it becomes. It's
Right.
it's a different
Right.
time. It's like you're.
There are no more. There are no more fat Anthony's or John Gotti's left in the street. But,
Right.
but who do I need to stay loyal to? When I got arrested and I reached out for help, Jojo Cosa, who's a millionaire, sent me word back that I made my own bed. Now I have to sleep in it. I needed $25,000 to pay for a lawyer. I mean, here's people that I killed people with, and they wouldn't even help me.
Well, and then they wonder why people flip on them. It's like you can.
Exactly. It's like Pete Gotti. Pete Gotti became the boss.
Right.
Right before my father came out of prison, my sister got into a car accident. She crashed into a limousine in Ozone Park, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my father calls up Mikey Gal, who's a wise guy, Tony Lee's brother, Mikey, and says, "What happened? My daughter got into an accident." Mikey Gal tells my father, "Don't worry about it. Pete and me, we took care of it. Don't worry about it." So my father goes, "Okay, good, thanks." Tell Pete thanks, right? About a month later, my father gets out of prison. He's home. He's in the yard, and Mikey Gal comes to the house. My father goes, "What are you doing here? You're on my restricted list. What do you want to get me locked up? You can't come to my house." So Mikey goes, "I had to come here. Pete sent me." Now, Pete was the official boss at the time. So my father goes, "Pete sent you?" He says, "Yeah." So he gives my father a piece of paper. It's an invoice. My father opens up the invoice, and the invoice is for $2,800. So my father says, "What is this for?" So Mikey tells my father, "It's for your daughter's car accident. That's the damage on the limousine. Pete said you got to give him $2,800. Now, my father just got out of prison, and he was kind of broke at the time, right? He just did 13 years. All his friends were dead. I mean, so my father goes, 20. He goes, "You told me that you and him took care of it." He goes, so my father takes the bill, he gives it back to Mikey, and now this is my father who's a gangster. Now, Pete was the sanitation worker.
Right, a garbage man. Right.
Now, my father's a gangster. My father takes the paper, gives it back to Mikey, and tells Mikey, "Listen, give this back to Pete and tell Pete if he wants to get paid, ask him what corner that I should wait on for him to come and meet me, and then I'll pay him."
Mm-hmm. Right.
So Mikey says, "What, are you kidding me?" He goes, "No, tell him what I told you." So Mikey leaves. Nothing ever comes about it. 18 months later, my father passes away.
Right.
I'm in prison. I'm in school killed. Now, I had a vending company where this kid Richie works for me. He used to collect the money for me I had a couple of vending locations with my father. I get a visit. It's this kid Richie. He tells me, "Listen, I don't know what to tell you, but Pete and Mikey Gal sent for me, and your father owed Pete $2,800. He wants you to give him the money out of the vending company." Listen, so 18 months later, after my father died, he shook me down for $2,800. Never asked my father for it because he knew he would have to kill my father.
Right.
Never asked my father for it. Waited and then took it off me. Made this so the kid was scared. The kid paid him out of the vending company because the kid was scared.
Right.
Which I wasn't going to leave the kid out there. I wasn't going to tell the kid not to pay him because they would have hurt the kid.
Right.
So these are the people that me and Johnny are supposed to be loyal to.
He's actually lucky that he got the respect that he did, because I could see your dad saying, "Hey, take this invoice, take it back to Pete, and tell him to go shove it up his ass."
So they call me and Johnny A like names for rats and school pigeons. But I mean, who are we supposed to be loyal to? Them? They weren't. Who was loyal to us? So at the end of the day, who was actually loyal to my father? Who gave his life and blood to that family since
Right.
1953? Even out of respect for him.
Right, just for who he was. It's like, Jesus, that amount of money is peanuts to that family. Just squash it. To somebody who's, like you said, who was a loyal, powerful captain for decades,
Right.
Yeah.
He helped everybody. My father, listen, as violent as my father may have been at times, he would have gave you the shirt off his back.
Right. All right, Anthony, you have my phone number, so I'll be in touch with you soon.
Without a doubt. Thank you.
All right, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
And that concludes the Reform Report interview with Anthony Ruggiano Jr. Again, I want to thank him for coming on. And I just wanted to say what I like about hosting an internet-based program is that it gives my listeners and subscribers the opportunity to hear real conversations with our guests. I want to thank you guys for tuning in, and we have several very interesting interviews that we are currently working on getting locked in, so continue to stay tuned.